Good morning, Professor. How are you? This week I did my self assessment blog on the empathy quiz. Empathy is the ability to understand other people's emotions. I definitely scored higher than I thought I would have, since I feel understanding emotions, it's not difficult, but I guess I can understand how they feel due to the circumstances that led up to the event, but I don't necessarily feel much emotions towards a person, because you also have to have sort of like a blank slate, tabula rasa, and be able to judge the situation accordingly. So if you get too overtly emotional during somebody else's trials and tribulations, then you're not going to be able to give the best advice, in my opinion, because it's just going to be an emotionally charged thing, and that's not what the person. It's not the best advice you could give. You have to be very impartial. But if the person definitely needs, you know, emotional support and hugs, and I'm all for that. But at the same time, I have to keep like a neutral stance to be able to judge the situation accordingly. I definitely think feeling bad, like very bad, like oh man, start crying with the person. That's just not my style, I guess, because I grew up in the era where 9/11 happened. Inside job, inside job. Sorry, my throat's been really itchy as of recently, but yeah, I grew up during that era, and tragedy befell the nation, the greatest tragedy, quote unquote, befell the nation when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Then, you know, it's going to be a generation that's going to be a bit desensitized to tragedy, especially with the amount of social media that we have. You see all types of tragedy that nobody cares about or talks about. For example, the most recent one, the genocide of the Uyghur Muslims. Absolutely nobody cares at all that it's happening, and every country still continues to do business with China, including USA. North American Basketball Association turned a blind eye towards them. Not only that, when Daryl Morey, he was a general manager of the Houston Rockets, spoke out against it, saying, he stands with the people of Hong Kong, they all turned against him, and China was saying they were going to ban the North American Basketball Association from China. And, everyone just, like, got quiet just because he said he stood with Hong Kong, which isn't even, like, the genocide they're committing. It's just another oppression of people that they're also committing. So, tragedy is something that is very common nowadays, and feeling bad, we're taught to be desensitized to all of it, since it's just so much and so often, and that's all the media ever shows too, because it's the only thing that gets views. That and the Olympics right now, which are doing a shitty job covering, in my opinion. But whatever. As I've grown, I've definitely improved in my ability to empathize, and I feel a lot of my friends come to me for very good impartial advice, since I'm not going to try to get too much on their side. I'm going to be very impartial, and just give them a very good answer that might help them. I've helped my friends deal with depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, yeah, anything that they might have ever needed. I have been there for them, and I usually have been the person to go to. One thing I have sucked at is, being consistent and following up with them in their times of need. I definitely feel it's difficult, because with life and your schedule, and if you have a lot of friends like me, it's difficult to maintain that constant level of attention towards every single person, since you're almost spread thin due to the number of people that you have to help. Let me see. Very good talking points that I noticed in the questionnaires. I have tender concern feelings for people less fortunate than me. Again, it's difficult. I understand where they're coming from, and their circumstances are very unfortunate, but I'm not gonna start crying for them either. I will try to help them, and try to get them to understand better. Perhaps I try to judge everybody impartially, even at work when people are like, oh, that guy's weird, or it's like, that guy's not weird, you just don't understand how he thinks, you don't understand his thought process. Everybody can be a friend, you just have to be able to sit down and understand why it is that they think why it is they think that way. And at work, very important point is I try to look at everybody's side of a disagreement before I make a decision. Even if I feel I am dead set on a decision, I will let the person explain their viewpoint before I come to a conclusion, because there's always two sides to a story. I had a very similar situation at work recently where I had a coworker and she felt upset that whenever she had a situation happen, I'd be like, hey, Roshner, which is our security guard, can you come here? Can you explain your side of the story? She didn't like the fact that I would ask another person for their perspective because she felt like I was undermining her. And I'm like, Kara, I'm not undermining you. I'm just trying to get the full scope of the situation. We're a team here, and if you're the person who logged out the packages and he's the one who delivers them, I have to make sure that the communication is right, and I have to see where the error went wrong. Since he's the one putting them up there and you're the one logging them out, he could have been the one who made the mistake and we wouldn't even know this. And she was very thankful afterwards and she agreed, but at the beginning it was very difficult for her to be like, why is he undermining me? Why is he going to somebody else to ask for their perspective when, I'm giving you my honest truth? But situations like that is just why you always have to be impartial, and you always have to give, well thought out answer to most situations. If not, you'll get in trouble. It's not COVID, I swear I got tested. I have very bad allergies.